Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. All right, let's see where we're at today. Today we're going to start off as usual. Spaceweather.com. All right, our solar wind is up there. It's at 520 kilometers per second. Our planetary K index at the moment is at a 2. It's expected or thought that it could get up to a 6 within the next 24 hours. It was actually up to a 6 last night. So it did jump up high and then has jumped back down since then. We could see coronal holes, nothing really forming here at the moment. If you were to turn the sun though on the side, it's like this could be an eye, a nose, maybe a mouth down here. There's a little. Okay, our geomagnetic storms, actually let's look at our M-class flares, 30% possibility. X-class, only about 1%. But there is a good chance that there's going to be geomagnetic storm activity, 40% in the mid-latitudes, 50% in the upper latitudes. And these activities could even get severe or minor. Not a lot of big chance for either one of those, but nonetheless, those could happen. And during these times, what you're going to probably catch is some really good pictures, things of this nature here. It says Earth is passing through the wake of a CME, and this is causing geomagnetic storms at high latitudes. Last night, auroras were spotted in more than a dozen U.S. states, including Michigan, Nebraska, Kansas, Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Illinois, and Colorado. So this is the kind of cool stuff you get when you have a geomagnetic storm. At least the kind that's not severe. Alright. Now, astrologically, we're in the sun sign of Taurus. So we're dealing with an element of Earth. And that's for the conscious mind. And we look here, unconscious mind, and we have moved from the place where we were between signs. And between signs is called void of course, moon void of course. Well, now, here we could see that we have one sign, so the moon has gone from this in-between phase now completely into Gemini, where it will be for the next 2 days. Gemini is an air sign, so we're dealing with the unconscious mind of air, the conscious of earth. So think of how those two elements work together. If you've got the wind blowing across the earth, it could really dry the earth out, or it could be a nice comfortable breeze moving things along. Or the wind can blow really heavily like a hurricane and blow that dust all over the place. So there's a lot of different ways. Also, you can have an abundance of earth and it could actually snuff out the air, suffocate it. So those are all different ways these energies can work. The idea is to learn how to balance them together. Now, if we look at the ideas beyond the elements of what they represent, Taurus represents practicality, looking at the pleasurable things in life. It, in tarot cards, is the card of the Hierophant, which is the inner teacher, teaches us to listen inside, whereas Gemini, the moon sign, is about communication. It's about finding balance with the two natures of ourselves. It's about being able to communicate effectively. And so bring these ideas together of communication and practicality. So kind of think before you act. Could be a good tone for today. All right. Our moon phase, you can see we're on our way up from a new moon up to a full moon. It's called the waxing phase. We're just a little bit there. And on the Dreamspell, or the Mayan Oracle, we've made it to the 5th position. It's represented by this bar, which is 5. The kin for today, the World Bridger, is right in the middle, the day kin. So we have the name of the day is called an overtone World Bridger. Overtone comes from the 5 tone, which is the overtone, and the World Bridger. So you take the name from the tone and the day kin. So today's the overtone World Bridger, guided by the Wizard. And then the supporting cast members, you've got the Warrior, which is the antipode, the challenging energy. It challenges the world bridger by questions and so on. And then you have the like-minded energy, which is exploration. In this case, the exploration of life and death and what this whole process is. And the hidden power underneath is our power of vision, our power really to be able to see past what is right in front of our face to, something out there, having that long-distance vision to see past the life-death situation. And the guide above it, the wizard, is all about timelessness. Okay? Our phrase for today: I empower in order to equalize commanding opportunity. I seal the store of death with the overtone tone of radiance. I am guided by the power of timelessness. And on the Gregorian calendar, it is Tuesday, April 24th, 2012. Here you can see a couple other on the Hab and the Mayan Zolkin, the dates there. 10 Kawak, 2 Wo. Well, you can make little comparisons, just seeing what these are all about in comparison to where the Dreamspell is. Because remember, the Dreamspell is the Mayan calendar, but with some adjustments. And these adjustments were made by Jose Arguelles, who felt that there needed to be these corrections to put us back on course. So that is what this is all about. All right, there you have it. That is our cosmic weather. Now, yesterday I started off the show with part 1, Ron Paul versus Wall Street Prostitutes. I want to play part 2. I thought it was a pretty good interview, talking about what's going on with him in his own words. So let me continue on with this. I'll be back. Here we go.
In the meantime, it may look better on the earnings front, but the economy remains under lots of pressure. That's why we've seen some of those red arrows this morning. We're trying to break down the recovery's risks with a squawk master of the market. Stephen Roach is a senior fellow at Yale University. He's also the former chairman of Morgan Stanley and also held the firm's chief economist post. Good morning to you, sir. You're in New York. You're not up in New Haven today.
Yeah, how about that? Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. So we've seen some red arrows this morning. The IMF had a meeting over the weekend. There's these jitters in Europe. Where are you right now on the economy?
Well, I think the data flow is mixed. I mean, I think the most disappointing thing in the U.S. is that it looks like a lot of the hiring that we were so enthusiastic about late last year was weather-related. So the jobless claims are now slightly more elevated than we'd like to stay on a brisk hiring curve. And so a little bit of the bloom is off the rose in the U.S. The housing indicators were weak. The underlying retail sales data were weak. Europe is still in recession now for the third quarter in a row. Growth slowing in China. So all this euphoria about a resumption of rapid global growth was probably an overstatement. The markets are reacting to that.
So, Steve, your expectation for the rest of the year, recognize we have Ron Paul here on the set. We're in the middle of this big presidential election. Whatever the economic number is or the unemployment number may be by the end of the year may ultimately decide all this. Where do you expect all this to shake out?
Look, I think in a weak recovery, we're going to have a really hard time getting this unemployment rate down below 8%. I mean, it may tick there, a tiny bit, but you add in the underemployment, and you've still got mid-teens in terms of broad-based measures of labor market distress in the United States, which is really without precedent for a so-called peacetime expansion. So the economy does remain, I think, the central issue for the upcoming campaign, and Representative Paul is focused on that very much so for a number of years.
Stephen, Representative Paul is also focused on the idea of a gold standard. Would you say that's the right way to go for the U.S. economy?
No, and he wants to end the Fed. I don't buy that either. But look, he just made the point in the previous segment that the political debate should be about ideology and philosophy, and that's a fair point. And he's got very extreme views on gold and the Fed that I don't agree with. But I respect his position and his willingness to debate these issues.
Okay, Ron, you have the floor. It's yours if you want it.
Well, the thing of it is, if you're not for a commodity standard, gold, silver, or whatever the market picks, you have to be for a paper standard. And the record for paper is a lot worse than the record for commodities. If you have a gold coin from Roman times, it's still worth something. But paper money essentially always destructs. It self-destructs because it encourages politicians to spend too much and print too much, and that's why we have a debt crisis right now. So to argue against gold means you have to argue for paper, and if you're for paper, it's necessary to have paper to finance government that the people don't support. Otherwise, the people would just pay their taxes and fight these wars and support the entitlement system. But yes, the people want the programs, but they don't want to pay for them, and you have to have paper to do this. But paper will always end badly, and we're in the process of the end of this. The European currency, the only reason the dollar does so well is the European is such a mess over there, and we still have a bit of a reserve status. But I would think that defending paper is much more difficult than defending honest money. And besides, it's still in the Constitution that we didn't repeal that part that said that legal tender ought to be gold and silver.
Steve,
look, I think you're really overstating and exaggerating paper versus something hard. Under Paul Volcker, late 70s, early 80s, we had paper. We just had a disciplined, tough monetary policy that was aimed at squeezing a hyperinflation out of the system. We need a responsible policy. It's not a question of hard or soft, gold or paper. We just need policy, discipline, and an independent Fed, not a Fed that is eliminated, as you have argued in your book.
But the purchasing power of the dollar, since the Fed's been in charge, we've lost 97% of it. The purchasing power of gold for thousands and thousands a year maintains its value. And actually, with increasing productivity, it goes up in value.
Ron Paul, stop right there. Let's get Stephen Roach's response to that.
How do you
is that right that we've lost 97% of the value?
Not even close. I mean, I would challenge the congressman's numbers. How have we lost 97% of the purchasing power of the dollar relative to what? I mean, the American economy has done darn well. We're having problems right now. There's no question about it. We went through a horrific crisis, and part of that, you're correct in pointing out, reflected irresponsible monetary policy in the years leading up to the subprime crisis. But to be on television and tell the American public they've lost 97% of the purchasing power of their currency is, I think, really irresponsible.
Okay, what about, when the Fed took over, the ratio was $20 to an ounce. Today it's $1,650 to an ounce. What percentage is that? That has to be awfully close. And CPI is not quite as much. And you're right, you have to pick what you're comparing it to. But historically, the best measurement of the purchasing power of a currency is gold. Just look at the disaster in the stock market today in valued in gold. If you ever look at that curve, in the last 10, 12 years, the value of the stock market is down a lot worse than the nominal value, let me tell you.
No, you're right. You're right about that. But again, to compare the purchasing power of the dollar for an average American to the price of gold, that a precious metal that he or she doesn't own, except maybe a few of them have it in their mouth, is I just don't think an accurate way to judge the strength of the economy.
Steve, you have to repeal some economic laws that have been around for a good many years.
Steve, we're going to set up a lunch so you guys can continue the debate. Appreciate you being here. Yale University's Steve Roach.
Well, I happen to agree with a lot of his writing. I enjoyed reading him.
And Ron Paul's going to be here for the remaining
Congressman.
portion of the show. Thanks so much.
Coming up.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, I'm back, and this is our UFO News for today. Let's see, our first story. I got 5 stories for you. Story number 1 comes to us from Cape Town. Cape Town UFO filmed by HD camera. So we got a video with this one. A UFO hovering over Greenpoint Stadium in Cape Town, South Africa, was caught on a high-definition video camera, making it perhaps some of the best footage ever recorded. At one point, the object seemed to transform from 2 separate lights into a single disc-shaped orb. What is it? The video, with no running commentary, includes a description of the setting as the lighted, unidentified object is filmed through stadium grading and just hovering in the night sky overhead. As the camera zooms in, the object seems to transform into a saucer shape with a single white light at the center. The UFO sighting is exceptional because of the high quality imagery. The YouTube user Will Swart123 explains the image had to be heavily compressed before loading it up to the site. Alright, let's take a look at all of this and see what we've got. Alright, there, I believe there's the object. There we go. Alright, we can see, and this says we're going to zoom in here, we're going to see, and as we get closer, definitely takes on interesting, alright, now we got to slow down. Alright, looks like we got a little stuff. Alright, there we go. Now we're going again. Alright, not really seeing anything too much at the moment. Video links available, but you saw what we were starting to look at, that light in the sky. Let's move on. Alright, we haven't been to this site in a while. This is UFOstalker. This is a good site for seeing what's going on around the country with UFOs. It really has a nice good map here. Let me just even zoom out a little more. Okay, as far as we're going to go. And you can see current sightings, and then down as here, wife and I saw 2 green lights above us, Paducah, Kentucky. Here we have, it scared me and I don't believe in hocus pocus. Next one, looking at the stars in a friend's backyard, I saw lights moving and said, Paul, look at that. He also saw it. We both confirmed it wasn't birds, and 3 lights and moved from east to west smoothly. I was shocked because I had a sighting very similar years ago. So this is a pretty good source here if you want to see what's going on around the country. You got the little images, you can click on them. They give you a bit more information about the sighting, when it was, anything particular about it, in this case the lights. Alright, and you can see they're happening all over. So there you go, that's UFOstalker. Alright, next up we have UFOs hovering over Matteson, Illinois. Alright. Witness reports, I'd first like to say sorry for the profanity language in the video as well as all the shaking. The roads were very bumpy and I had no tripod at the time. I was on my way home from having dinner with a friend when I noticed a bright light suddenly appear in the eastern sky, lined up in a straight line. I was traveling east down Lincoln Highway, Route 30 in Matteson, just passing Harlem Avenue when we noticed the lights. They all appeared very suddenly. We were just about in a straight line formation. We knew these were not airplanes or helicopters because of how all of a sudden they appeared and how still they were at first. Alright, let's check this out here. Alright. Where are we at here? Where are we at? Okay. Alright. Not really seeing too good in the sky, the colors here. Okay, you can see there's a series of lights and things out this way. If you look at the video in a larger view, you'll be able to see it much clearer. But that's what we're going on here. It's got a 4-minute video, so check it out. Alright, next one, UFO involved in Pakistan air crash, 2012. Initial research into the air crash that killed over 100 people in Islamabad on Friday, the 20th of April, have found that the gasoline tanks of the aging Boeing 737 exploded in midair. However, according to unverified reports, the pilot of the doomed airliner informed air traffic controllers at Islamabad's Benzar Bhutto airport that they were being buzzed by a triangular-shaped unidentified flying object. Just moments before the disaster happened, did a UFO collide with the Boeing 737? This is an unverified account, guys. Trying to find additional information on it, so treat it with caution till more details transpire. Alright, let's take a look. See what video we do have. Alright, we've got some audio here of this news report, so let me play this.
Поступают все новые подробности катастрофы пассажирского самолета в окрестностях столицы Пакистана. Сейчас вы видите первые кадры с места, где сегодня вечером разбился Боинг 737, выполнявший внутренний рейс из мегаполиса Карачи в Исламабад. Данные о погибших разнятся, но все источники сходятся в одном, что жертв не меньше 130 на борту лайнера и, возможно, еще на земле. Самолет упал на деревню Хусейн-Абад в нескольких километрах по курсу посадочной полосы международного аэропорта. Пока мало что известно об обстоятельствах трагедии. Агентству Рейтер очевидцы рассказали о каком-то огненном шаре в небе прямо перед тем, как рухнул Боинг. Отчасти эта версия подтверждается заявлением министра обороны Пакистана. Интерфакс приводит его слова, что самолет загорелся в воздухе. Возможно, люди видели в небе молнию. В районе аэропорта сегодня проливные дожди и ураганный ветер. Известно также, что связь с самолетом прервалась почти сразу после того, как пилоты получили от диспетчеров разрешение на посадку. Судя по обломкам, лайнер принадлежал пакистанской авиакомпании Боджа Airlines. У нее еще 4 таких самолета. Разбившийся сегодня Боинг совершил первый полет в 1980 году. Боджа купил его менее 2 месяцев назад. Как раз сегодня компания выполнила на этой машине первый рейс из Карачи в Исламабад.
All right, so that's our report from Pakistan, and one more here. This is Transylvania. They don't just have vampires out there anymore. Locals in a remote part of Transylvania are being terrorized by UFOs. People living around Hoya Baku Forest have flooded local police with complaints about unidentified flying objects. The reports include sightings of luminous spheres that hover silently above the ground before zooming off at high speed, as well as other flying geometrical shapes. And they have also seen colored lights in the sky and strange humanoid apparitions. Others claim to have seen weird lights that surround certain objects. Local Tryon UNESCO 57 complained, "No one seems to be taking us seriously. Transylvania does have a reputation for being a place where people are superstitious, and there's all that stuff about vampires and garlic. But in reality, people here are more worried about aliens." One man claimed to have been left with mysterious skin burns. Others were imprisoned or suddenly discovering themselves surrounded by a weird light. The complaints have even attracted the attention of the government officials and have also reached Romanian University professor Adrian Petrot, head of the Romanian Parapsychology Society, who has now done a documentary on the project that has been posted on YouTube. Local UFO watcher Daniel Roxon, who writes a blog on the subject, said, "Forget vampires, Transylvania has more in common with the Bermuda Triangle." All right, more to the story. Check it out. That is our UFO news for today. Time to jump away for our moment of waking up. Here we go. I'll be back. What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
All right, continuing on. All right, and next, I got two pieces here. We're going to do Ron Paul, and then we're going to move on from there. So the first one says Ron Paul stays in the race and attracts thousands of supporters. Oh, let's check this out. Here we go.
Right now. Good evening, I'm Dave Graber. Less than a week before the New York primary, a Republican presidential hopeful makes his way to the Twin Tiers to gain support. Action News reporter Jenna Hancher joins us now to tell us more about Ron Paul's visit to Cornell University. So, Jenna, let me ask you, did he have a lot of support? Did he find a lot of support in Ithaca?
Tons of support. Ron Paul had an overwhelming amount of support tonight. His campaign is reporting that about 4,400 people packed into the Lina rink on Cornell University's campus. But the question is, Dave, will tonight's crowds and applause be enough to help him win the New York primary and hopefully, for him, rather, snag the Republican presidential nomination? Tonight, the Texas congressman says he wants to take people to the future of liberty. The presidential hopeful is in favor of limited constitutional government, citing, among other issues, that the Patriot Act should be repealed because he says it is intrusive and unpatriotic. Despite tonight's crowds, Paul has yet to gain any traction in the polls or win a state primary. However, the Republican told me tonight that he's not backing down anytime soon, and his supporters are happy he's still in the running.
I'm not making any rash predictions. I'm very pleased with our progress, and in many ways we're doing better than I expected. And there's a lot of votes that haven't been counted, and the delegates have really just going through the process. So I'm cautiously optimistic on how well we do.
Bringing back our liberties, bringing back our freedoms, you know, making our government smaller and less intrusive on, you know, our personal liberties and freedom, and to bring us back to prosperity.
The New York State primary is just 5 days away on April 23rd.
Now, Jen, I think his visit certainly begs the question. Ithaca's voter base, typically, historically, they vote Democrat, and yet thousands of people showed up tonight to see Ron Paul. Why do you think so?
Definitely. Some people may find it ironic, but Ron Paul actually has a lot of support from college students across the country. Ron Paul hasn't always been on the Republican ticket. He's ran as a Libertarian several times, and many people I spoke with tonight say they don't see him as, you know, a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian. They just kind of identify with his issues and beliefs.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we've been seeing that all across the country as well.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so Ron Paul again getting good crowds where he goes, and it's good to see that those reporters are talking about it. Local papers and local reports seem to talk about such things, but when it gets to the mainstream, you know, the national news, that's where they certainly are giving you news other than what's really going on. All right, this is a clip of Ron Paul, Rachel Maddow talking about Ron Paul. So let's listen to what she has to say. Here we go.
At this time tomorrow, we will be getting in results from the very, very, very anticlimactic Republican presidential primaries in Connecticut, Delaware, New York, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. There is precisely no one on the edge of a seat anywhere in America breathlessly awaiting the results of those primaries, because the Republican nomination appears to be all but sewn up. Even with Mitt Romney having all but sewn it up, though, there do continue to be little off-script moments on the Republican side, things that run counter to the prevailing sense we have that the Republican primary is stick a fork in it done. Por ejemplo, Newt Gingrich today kicking off a 10-city campaign swing through North Carolina. Now, North Carolina is not on the list of states that's going to be voting tomorrow. North Carolina doesn't hold its primary until May 8th. But Mr. Gingrich is apparently still trying to win that one. Also, yesterday in Philadelphia, where there is going to be voting tomorrow, the candidate Ron Paul drew a huge crowd despite driving rain. The campaign says over 4,000 people turned out to hear Ron Paul speak in Philly in the middle of a drenching downpour. So if the main idea here, the main script everybody's reading from here is that Mitt Romney has got it done, it is over, frankly, there are still things going on the Republican side that make it seem like it's not done, at least not totally done. Perhaps the most off-script thing that has just happened on the Republican side is that I think Ron Paul just won Iowa. Seriously, this weekend. You'll recall that the Iowa caucuses on the Republican side this year were a bit of a disaster. Remember what the counting was like that night in January?
The numbers we're receiving from the state do not match the numbers we just received from the county chairwoman right here in Clinton County. If these are the final numbers...
The numbers don't match.
Well, I'll explain it. I'll explain it to you. John, you go ahead and explain it.
The numbers, Madam Chairwoman, I'm not questioning your numbers. I'm saying the numbers you're giving us now do not match the numbers that the State Central Committee has reported so far from your county, and they say one precinct is missing. So if your numbers are that missing precinct, and these are the final numbers from Clinton County, excuse my scribble, but 437, not 386, 354, not 321, we can stop right there. Well, that would make
Romney the winner.
Romney the winner.
And then about 20 minutes after that strange middle-of-the-night moment on CNN, this guy, the state Republican Party chairman in Iowa, officially declared that Mitt Romney had won Iowa. They officially declared Mitt Romney the winner by 8 votes out of more than 120,000 cast.
Congratulations to Governor Mitt Romney, winner of the 2012 Iowa caucuses. Congratulations to Senator Santorum for a very close second-place finish in an excellent race here.
Don't believe him for a second. About 2 weeks after that, the party released final certified results that said that Mitt Romney was not the winner. The Iowa State Republican Party had changed its mind. They said first there was no way to know who won, then that the results should be viewed as a tie, and then they said that actually Rick Santorum had won.
It is indisputable that the certified caucus results have Rick Santorum winning by 34 votes.
So you're declaring this, then, a victory for Rick Santorum?
Yeah, the certified vote results.
Now, you sure know? After all of that, after the disastrous vote counting and the disorganization and the chaos and Romney winning and then Santorum winning, the Iowa Republican Party chairman resigned, naturally. And now, 16 weeks after the voting happened and Mitt Romney was declared the winner, and 14 weeks after Rick Santorum was declared the winner, now it appears that Ron Paul is the winner in Iowa. See, Iowa gets to send a total of 28 delegates to the National Convention in Tampa this summer. One of the delegate seats goes to the new state party chairman who replaced the guy who was the disaster who quit. The new guy is an avowed Ron Paul supporter, so that's one Ron Paul delegate. This weekend, the state nomination committee that picks 13 more of the delegates, that committee was taken over by a majority of Ron Paul supporters, which means Ron Paul has just locked up at least half of Iowa's delegates. These 13 plus 14 in the form of the state party chairman, 14 of the 28 delegates, half the delegates are his. He will not get less than half. So Ron Paul either wins Iowa or, worst case scenario, he ties for first place. And while we're on the subject, looks like Ron Paul just won Minnesota, too. Minnesota has 40 delegates total. This weekend, Ron Paul won 20 of them. Now, not all the rest of Minnesota's 40 delegates have been allocated yet, but with half of them locked up, Ron Paul cannot come in worse than first. Worst case scenario, Ron Paul ties for first place in Minnesota. Anything better than that, he wins outright. And it should be noted, he warned us this was going to happen.
Thank you very much. When the dust settles, I think there's a very good chance that we're going to have the maximum number of delegates coming out of Minnesota.
Ron Paul was right. Nobody is getting more delegates than he did in Minnesota or in Iowa or in wherever else this Ron Paul delegate strategy of his pays off. The main plot of the Republican nominating process remains mostly on script. Mitt Romney appears to be buttoning up the nomination, but it is not tidy. Want one more example? This weekend in Texas, Texas Republicans met in their Senate district party conventions, whatever those are, and this was no coronation for Mr. Romney, even though everybody thinks he's got it done. I mean, forget the Beltway media narrative here. Forget the main script. The Ron Paul supporters in Texas were marching this weekend under the banner of Warren G. Harding. They are citing the Warren G. Harding strategy of 1920. In 1920, Warren G. Harding went into the Republican National Convention with the fewest delegates of all the surviving candidates, and Warren G. Harding walked out with the nomination. He won on the 10th ballot. And if it worked 92 years ago for the man who would become our 29th president, couldn't it work now? If the Republican Party keeps this race as chaotic as it has been in the states, who knows? If this race keeps going the way it has been, frankly, Newt Gingrich is due to win Iowa any day now. Everybody else has already had their turn.
All right, very good. So Ron Paul, again, doing much, much better than they tell you he's doing. All right, it's because they're afraid of him, because they know powers that be, they're trying to have their agendas and put their establishment guys in there. But hey, just because that's what they want to do doesn't mean they're going to succeed. A lot of times bad guys have plans that they want to do things, and the good guys and people who are going to have the plans put against them, they get all freaked out because they think, oh, the bad guy has a plan. Just because they have a plan doesn't mean it's going to succeed. So there's a lot more of us in America, and there are a lot more of us around the world than those wanting to do the bad things. All we have to do is stand up, and we'll gain back our freedoms, because our voices cannot be silenced. This next story comes from Paul Craig Roberts over at InfoWars. It's called How Liberty Was Lost. When did things begin going wrong in America? From the beginning. Answer: some English colonists themselves, under the thumb of a king, exterminated American Indians and stole their lands, as did the late 18th and 19th century Americans. Over the course of 3 centuries, the native inhabitants of America were dispossessed, just as the Israelis have been driving Palestinians off their land since 1948. Demonization always plays a role. The Indians were savages and the Palestinians are terrorists. Any country that can control the explanation can get away with evil. I agree that there is a lot of evil in every country and civilization. In the struggle between good and evil, religion has at times been on the side of evil. However, the notion of moral progress cannot so easily be thrown out. Consider, for example, slavery. In the 1800s, slavery still existed in the countries that proclaimed equal rights. Even free women did not have equal rights. Today, no Western country would openly tolerate the ownership of humans or the transfer of a woman's property upon her marriage to her husband. It is true that Western governments have ownership rights in the labor of their citizens through the income tax. This remains as a mitigated form of serfdom. So far, however, no government has claimed the right of ownership over the person himself. Sometimes I hear from readers that my efforts are pointless, that elites are always dominant, and that the only solution is to find one's way into the small connected cliché of elites, either through marriage or service of their interests. This might sound like cynical advice, but is not so devoid of some truth. Indeed, it is the way of Washington and New York. It's the way they work, and increasingly the way the entire country operates. Washington serves powerful private interests, not the public interests. University faculties in their research increasingly sever private interests and decreasingly serve truth. In the U.S., the media no longer a voice and protection for the people. It is becoming increasingly impossible for America to get a good job without being connected to the system that serves the elites. The problem I have with this give-up attitude is over the course of my life, and more broadly over the course of the 20th century, more positive changes occurred through reforms. It is impossible to have reforms without goodwill, so even the elites who accepted reforms that limited their powers were part of the moral progress. Labor unions become a countervailing power to corporate management of Wall Street. Working conditions were reformed. Civil rights were expanded. People excluded by the system were brought into it. Anyone who grew up in the 20th century can add his own examples. Progress was slow, unduly so from a reformer's standpoint, and mistakes were made. Nevertheless, whether done properly and improperly, there was a commitment to the expansion of civil liberty. Okay? So, it's important that we don't lose sight of these civil liberties, the freedoms that we have. There's too much of a tendency for, I don't understand it, and I know that you're seeing it too, of people who just no longer care. They have given up on caring what goes on in this country. You bring up politics to them, they don't want to hear about politics. You bring up religion, they don't want to hear about religion. You bring up what's going on with the corruptions or the scandals out there, they don't want to hear about that. All they want to do is go work their job, go home at night, drink their beers, and go to bed. And that's, unfortunately, a lot of the country. Good men that could be out there standing up and speaking. Good women that could be standing up there and speaking. But they're not. Look at the Ron Paul campaign. Look how many young people are stepping up. The reason the young people are stepping up is because the older people have dropped the ball. So the young people need to step up. Maybe that's why they're saying the children will save us. Because maybe the adults of this world, of this planet, have become so lost and confused by all the lies that they don't know how to get out of it. Maybe they've become too apathetic or too lazy in the approach, and the young people need to step up. Something needs to happen, because America, the rug has been pulled out from underneath your feet. And a lot of you are just sitting there not caring. You've got to do something. You've got to share this information. You need to talk to others. You need to inform people of what's going on. Because if people don't know what's going on, they don't know how they're being lied to. I can't tell you how many times I bring up the Obama thing, and people say, well, why does that matter? Why does it matter that this man is, his birth certificate's not who he is? Why does it matter? Well, because there's a man in the office, an office that should be run by somebody who believes in the ideals of America. There's a man in office who believes in the ideal of Muslim, who stated that his religion was Muslim, who when he campaigned said he was going to campaign in 57 states. There's 57 Islamic states. A man who has over and over and over hid his background. That's not what this country was founded upon. And yet, people will still support that behavior and still justify that behavior, and I don't understand why. And I'm sure a lot of you are equally as confused. But hopefully things will change and people will wise up a bit. What's it going to take? I don't know. Sometimes it seems like these bad things, like the martial law, is going to happen for a certain period of time for a lot of Americans to really wake up. Because short of that, what's going to wake up Americans to the fact that there's something going on? It's only if their lives are interrupted that people are actually going to realize they got to fix a problem. Let's hope it doesn't go that far. It will only go that far if people stop talking about this issue and ignore it. There's something going on behind the scenes. And if you just start keeping track of all of the things that are going on, it starts to add up to something. So, and it's not adding up to something good. America needs to step up to the plate. The people of the world need to step up. This is a time, it's a galactic graduation ahead. This is a time for us all to evolve in a much different way than we've been used to evolving. We need to step into our spirituality, because the next phase of evolution is a spiritual evolution. Not everyone's going to make it. Everyone has the opportunity to make it, but whether you do or not, that's up to how much you're willing to actually explore the spiritual changes that are going on with you. Some people just get freaked out because sometimes the energy is too much to deal with and there's nothing you can do. But people who are willing to deal with the energy will take it in and their lives will change for the better. All right. Next story right here is a story of Julian Assange. Let me play this for you here. It says Assange mainstream friends U-turn after show boom. Here we go.
That once praised Julian Assange, hailing him a hero for his work as a whistleblower, has now drastically changed its tune after the debut of his talk show here on RT. While some say it's due to journalistic jealousy, others believe the U-turn is political. Laura Smith reports now from London.
It was one of the biggest scoops of all time. 92,000 leaked logs detailing the bloody truths of the Afghan war from the ground up, shared exclusively with a handful of newspapers. And Julian Assange was its hero, a nomad with no fixed address and a backpack full of secrets.
Julian Assange contacted some of the big mainstream players in the media markets, and they were only too happy, of course, to piggyback off one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest leak of classified information in history. The Guardian has benefited hugely by the deal they made with Julian Assange.
The leaks contained the material for dozens of stories in the New York Times and The Guardian, enhancing their reputations as protectors of democracy and press freedoms. Back then, The Guardian newspaper, one of Assange's original media partners, called him an important figure, a most interesting and unusual pioneer. But now, in the pages of the very same publication, he's a useful idiot. From hero to zero, a fall from grace that some put down to nothing more than journalistic jealousy. A useful idiot in The Guardian, a nut job in the New York Times. With partners like these, who needs enemies?
It staggers me. It absolutely leaves, me sort of floored that so many journalists who really, I think their job should be challenging authority, their job should be preventing governments working in the dark, seem to be so critical of somebody who's probably done one of the most major issues in giving journalism a service, in challenging power in recent years.
Assange says one reason he chose RT to broadcast his programme is that other channels wouldn't let the people he wanted to interview say the things they wanted to say. Some say the resulting backlash on both sides of the Atlantic is a way for publications of questionable integrity to whitewash their images.
It really makes American media outlets feel good to be able to point to other media outlets and say, oh, look over there, those are tools and instruments for state propaganda, because when they do that, they get to forget about and obscure their own role in disseminating state propaganda, most notoriously in the lead up to the Iraq War, where, for example, the New York Times did more than almost anybody to convince Americans about the need to attack Iraq based on a lie. But even since then, the model of the U.S. media is very much to show faithful loyalty to the U.S. government. And so there's really a lot of irony and hypocrisy in this criticism.
In a further irony for The Guardian, its anti-Assange backlash seems to have seriously misjudged its readership. Comments in response to the article are overwhelmingly supportive of Assange and his show and accuse the paper of bearing a childish grudge.
At best, it's the envy. At worst, it is crucial political viewpoints taken by the mainstream media. They don't like what the wiki cables have revealed. They don't like what Julian Assange represents, because it really does threaten the perspective of mainstream media.
Perhaps Assange's latest and unintended scoop shows how so-called liberal media outlets like The Guardian and New York Times are anything but, demonstrating instead an intolerance of those who don't play by their rules. Laura Smith, RT, London.
All right. Next, this is another one coming to us from InfoWars. This is Steve Watson. TSA note. Now, this is another TSA issue. When are we going to put a stop to the TSA? TSA leaves note telling passenger to go to hell. For real, look at this. New Yorker Ross Brenson can burn forever in eternal damnation as far as the TSA are concerned, following his attempts to find out why his luggage had been broken into and tampered with during a flight from LAX to JFK. When Brenson opened the TSA certified green lock and his bag had been removed and the loops of the zipper cut, he inquired with airline JetBlue as to what had happened. The Manhattan-based graphic designer was referred to TSA representatives. Nobody could give me an answer about what happened in L.A., but they very politely told me that if I wanted to file a complaint, I could fill out this form. He even looked at the form more closely. Bernson discovered that someone from the TSA had scrawled the words, "Go to hell" on it. Everyone was very helpful, very nice. I didn't realize the form said "Go to hell" until I got to the subway, Brenson said. I'm pretty laid back, but seeing an official form like this say "Go to hell" is pretty shocking. Brenson also said he believes the form, including a handwritten portion, is a photocopy that the other versions may have issued to other passengers wishing to make complaints against the agency. A TSA spokesperson told the blog site issued the following statements in response to the incident. TSA looks forward to the opportunity to work directly with the passenger to learn more about the interaction with the employee and the handwritten note on the form he received. This will assist us in reviewing the issue. Additionally, we will work with the passenger to address the damaged luggage. TSA is a useless organization, and I think they should stop their activities and go find another job. And like I say before, if you're a TSA agent out there and you're improperly touching children, you should drop dead on the spot. Because if other TSA agents watched TSA agents dropping dead just because they improperly touched someone, maybe they wouldn't touch anyone either. We don't need these stinking TSA scumbags at the airport leaving notes in people's luggage and harassing people. Those are the real terrorists. The Transportation Security Agency is really the terrorist agency. That's all that they are. Terrorizing people who want to fly, leaving notes like this, abusing children, abusing elderly, abusing women. It has to stop. It has to stop. Horrible. Horrible. All right, next one. Fukushima is falling apart. This comes to us from the Intel Hub. Fukushima is falling apart. Are you ready? Christian Consolo, host of Nuked Radio. 13 months have passed since the Fukushima reactors exploded, and a U.S. senator finally got off his ass and went to Japan to see what is going on over there. And what he saw was horrific. Now he is saying that we are in a big trouble. See the letter he sent to U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Ichiro Fujisaki, Secretary of Energy Stephen Chu, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, NRC's Chairman Gregory Jaczko-Here. But what is so ironic about this is that we have been in this heap of trouble since March 2011. March 17 to be exact, when the plume of radioactive material began bombarding the west coast of California, in Oregon, in Washington, in British Columbia, and later Maine, Europe, and everywhere in between. Independent researchers, nuke experts, and scientists from oceanography to entomology and everywhere in between have been trying to sound the alarm ever since. The scientists most upset are those who have studied the effects of radiation on health. I'll say it again. It is so really clear we are in big trouble. The most preliminary report of soil contaminations are starting to come in from the USGS, who has seemed reluctant to share their information. Los Angeles, California, Portland, Oregon, and Boulder, Colorado so far have the highest radioactive particle contamination out of the entire U.S. That being said, every city tested across the country shows contamination from Fukushima. What is even more alarming, however, is the numbers coming in is that they are from samples taken April 5th of last year. The Tokyo Electric Power Company, which only recently confirmed that there were 3 meltdowns and they have been ongoing unabated for 13 months and no effort has been made to contain them. Technology has been developed, invented to deal with the melted out corium under the reactors. Until then, we will keep doing what we have been doing. TEPCO just keeps dumping water on them, after which they let it pour into the ocean and steam up through the ground every second of the day. Well, there's more to this story, and it's very, very sad what's going on, and very sad that they don't know what's going on, and took 13 months for someone to actually get over there, a senator from the U.S. to get over and actually look at this. It's a sad situation, and unfortunately, the news is drop the ball again, because this is going on. The United States is being contaminated with radiation, as is many other parts of the world, and the media is just going about their business as if this isn't even occurring anymore. Because to them it doesn't. They come in, they get their marching orders, these are the stories you're going to read, and that's it. Because you know what? I don't think any of these reporters that work for the mainstream, I don't think they have internet access when they get home. Because if they did, they could probably go find out some things. They're probably very limited on what can be found information-wise. So we shouldn't wonder why the mainstream people can't report news. They're just limited. They don't have the same sort of access as every other American on the planet does because, well, you know, they go to the news station and they're just used to other people telling them how to think. Alrighty. Let's see here. This next story here, it's our last one before we go to their meditation. And this is Dutch Sense is bringing to us this video. It is of Mount Etna. Is this Dutch Sense? Yeah. This is Mount Etna, and it's a current eruption. Check this out. Alright, that's the actual... That is the volcano itself erupting. Now, it's not like this doesn't erupt. It happens often enough. It's always quite a sight when it does, though. And certainly something is being released pressure-wise. That's why the eruption is taking place. Alright. Now, obviously, this wasn't taken live and in person. There are webcams at all these different locations. And there you have it. Erupting Mount Etna in Italy. Alright. Very last, let's jump to our meditation for today. Go ahead and close your eyes. And relax. Alright. Let's imagine that we are walking along a path. And as we are walking along the path and we see others on the path as well, we notice that everybody is moving along the same direction. Nobody's talking with each other, just moving along. All understanding the way to go. And then out of nowhere, there's a guy that comes running down the street in the opposite direction, hollering that everybody needs to turn around, they're going the wrong way. This person's spouting off information that everyone knows isn't true. And so because people understand it isn't true, they disregard this information and continue on. And a little while later, there's two people that are running through hollering out information that's not true. And if people are walking and they see this, and people realize that the information they're saying is not accurate, and they keep moving. And you walk a little further, and pretty soon you see a whole crowd of people. And this crowd is a title. They're called the news, the mainstream news, and they're broadcasting information for you. And you walk by and you see their screens and you listen to their stories and you realize something about that whole scenario is very fake. Something is not real. And you disregard what they're saying. And after the third time of disregarding and not looking at the illusions, everything becomes clear and you understand, even better than before, the truths. You realize that all you have to do is to turn off these other sources of information that are dishonest and deceitful. To tell yourself that you will only accept information coming in that is truthful and honest and for your highest good. And as you do so, you will find that life becomes a bit smoother, because you are following a path and following information that is true, real. And as you do, you notice the planet thrives, and it evolves, and people make progress, all because of a change of attitude. Imagine the rain starts to come down, and as the rain falls down, it washes away all of the dirt off of everybody. And with that dirt goes any doubts and fears. And as the fears drip off and wash away, you realize that the fear itself is just that, fear. And fear is what keeps things down. And fear is just an illusion. And once you remove that illusion of fear, your perception changes. Your strength returns. And you realize the truth that you are a divine child of the great Creator. And there is no fear in that. So hold the strength in your heart. Let that light shine brightly from the heart chakra going out, filling your whole body with love. Let that love flow out of your body, filling the room, the neighborhood, the city, the state, your country, and all across the ocean to all of the other countries around the planet. Just think love, send love. For through this simple act, we make great changes. We make great strides. Holding that ideal of love in your heart, let's bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Open your eyes. That's it. We've made it through another show, another prayer, another meditation. Go out into the world today, my friends. Have fun. Just look at life through eyes of love. See if you can find the places where fear shows up in your life. Just sit back as an observer and see where the fear is. Don't get caught up in the fear. Just observe where it is. See if you can understand why it is there and how you can eliminate it. Because there's always other ways to resolve situations. Simply looking at them and understanding them can sometimes make a big difference. So go into the world today, learn about the fears that are around you, and send them away. You don't need them anymore. Fear is holding us back. We need to charge forward, make the proper changes in this world that need to happen. This is the year to do it, my friends. This is the year to do it. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. Till then, be safe. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.